All right, we are live here with the Dev Talk Show on March 4th, 2020, a little bit after 8:30 here on the East Coast, where we had a pretty warm day for a spring, I think. Although, I don't know, it's early March. Sometimes it's snowing this time of year.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty warm. We should have worn shorts and fired up the barbecue.
When I took the kids to the bus stop this morning, I looked around and I forget what to call those. What do you call those bushes? The ones with like the little yellow flowers. They're really popular. You
Yellow flower bushes?
Yeah, those are the ones, right?
Right.
They had like buds on them, like they're blooming.
Right, early March, and sometimes we've had snows into March and so on, and you never know what'll happen because we did have a crazy thunderstorm last night. But here we are in March of 2020. If you're watching us in the future on the YouTube archive, thanks for joining us, and make sure if you like the topic tonight that you go hit that like button down below. And if you're joining us live on Mixer and Twitch, then thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions, we're going to be keeping an eye on the chat, and you can talk to us about both the theoretical side and the practical side of releasing software. We're going to drill down into a little niche of that tonight, right?
Yeah.
That little niche is called?
Little niche.
A little niche of releasing software. Feature flags, feature management. Yeah.
Feature management, which I didn't even know about. I'm trying to think about, well, I saw an article about this. We talked about it last week, I think, or was that after the show? I know we were talking about it, but I can't remember if it was on this. Yeah. So I had seen an article about it recently, but it came up recently somewhere. And even though I might have just seen it even like a month ago or whatever, I'm like, how did I not know about this? Is one of those ones that I didn't know about.
Yeah, I mean, so the concept of feature flags is, especially in today's continuous delivery world, how do you ship a new feature without kind of being a little nervous that, like when you cross that line and say like, well, gosh, we might risk breaking production. So the idea behind feature flags is that through configuration or other means, you can ship code and then turn it on in production just by changing a config of some kind. Specifically, we've found a library that helps .NET developers do that.
Yeah, now this concept's been around a while.
Yeah, right. The concept is one thing.
And we take advantage of this at work. I don't know if you guys are doing that kind of thing. There's other libraries and there's other things. This one,
even whole products.
This makes it look really easy, quite frankly. I was pretty surprised at how easy it was to get started with this feature management, which I'm not really sure. Rich, maybe you know the answer to this. There's part of this is in Azure, and there's definitely an Azure portal side of this.
Yep.
But you can also do it without using Azure at all. It's like you just do it in ASP.NET Core now. So does that make it an ASP.NET feature, or does it make it an Azure feature, or
And where's the line between?
Where's the line between? Sure. And does it matter?
I don't think it matters. It's just I mean, you'll see as we go through this. It's an understanding of where those configuration values live, and then who can essentially access those configuration values. So it doesn't have to just be your app service and your web app components that are running inside of your app service. Functions can access those. Containers can access those. Right? It's just a matter of
It doesn't matter, right?
And to be very clear, to implement the feature flag concept, we are using a specific library tonight. We're going to explore the feature managed library that's built by the Azure team. Right. So folks on the Azure team said, wow, this would be a great idea to help .NET Core developers.
Okay.
And I think,
we might
have to double check on that .NET Core, because I wonder if it's a .NET standard library, and then
I don't know. I mean, you can use it in .NET Core. You don't have to have ASP.NET to use it.
Right.
You can use it in an ASP.NET Core console. Now, I don't think you can use it in Framework. But I don't know.
Well, that's what we didn't check into, depending on whether it's .NET standard. Like, let's say it's a standard 2.0 library, then it should be.
It's not.
We'll explore all that tonight.
It's really not that complicated if you think about it.
And so this library helps you get to feature flags, which is a tool that's being used, we know, by the Azure DevOps team.
Yep.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're using this library. It just means the Azure team said, "Hey, I bet you people would like this."
Yeah.
And there's other products out there,
but this is
that help you do this.
This is easy.
Yeah, right.
Like, honestly, it ticked most of my boxes.
And that's what I'm actually interested in, because just to let the audience know, I stayed away a little bit because I want sometimes we do this on purpose. I say, I kind of don't want to know how this works, so that way I can react a little more honestly,
Right.
Sure.
and say, you're right, Andy. This is easy, or whatever I think.
And the funny thing about that, because you're right.
Well, that just comes naturally to me to just not know.
But this is sort of the way our show works.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
so what happened? I actually thought I was going to sit back but so we chat during the day. We have some instant messaging stuff. We use Discord or whatever.
Yeah.
And we chat, and I'm like, I guess you guys were busy, and I wasn't hearing back from anybody. So I said, maybe I'll go read about this, right? And the interesting thing is this. This is what's cool about that. I think I spent 15 minutes learning this, and I feel like I know enough to use this at work productively. You know what I mean? And so like, it's simple.
And we
It's
know
easy.
enough to do a show.
And we're gonna do a
Exactly.
show. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about it.
Yeah,
Let's
so-
see. Do you think it helps to start with a quick demo? Is that
Depends on what Rich wants to do. Now, by the way, I just want to point out that we can't see, so I don't know what's going out on the stream because this monitor isn't on.
well, we
down
have
here.
that monitor.
So that
there.
doesn't show what's.
No,
on.
It
you're
might
right.
not.
So
we're not
let me do
seeing,
that.
like,
Hang
with
on, let me do
Rich and
this.
stuff like that. I hate to be. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right.
Now you're okay. That's on that screen. Yeah.
We didn't get down here.
Yeah. So what's that?
We didn't get down here.
Oh, we got down here a little later
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah. Right. You
after
guys
Philly.net.
Yeah. Philly.net meeting. And
Tonight, Philly.net.
I thought maybe this remote would work, but I guess it doesn't. So that's the remote. Yeah. I didn't want to turn off the wrong TV. We've
Yeah.
got all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
here.
if you could see this. It takes a lot of work for that stream to look this good. And if you were here, you would see the
Oh, look,
amazing
thank you, Rich. I appreciate
Hollywood lighting.
that. It's pretty
And
impressive.
yeah, and then of course the mahogany desk that we're sitting behind. I mean, spare no expense. And the
These are
beautiful-
massage chairs.
the-
A lot of people don't
yeah,
realize that the
the-
chairs we sit in, those are those electric.
Yeah, the beautiful view out into
The
Philadelphia or some
We
place
built this studio up on the
somewhere.
20th floor.
Sure,
20th floor of a
25th?
3-story building.
25th
Two-story
maybe,
building,
yeah.
24, 25, whatever it takes.
Who's counting?
So, Rich, what do you want to do? So there's two aspects of this that
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier, right?
Yep.
There's the Azure side, there's the code side.
Yeah.
I think you want to just explain what did we explain enough of what the feature
What
is?
feature
like,
flags are?
because I think people sort of can envision it a little
They
bit.
can. I
without
think
the
the
demo.
one thing we didn't touch on in all the discussion we had around feature flags is, and we kind of danced around it, so maybe we did. I just want to be explicit about it. When we talk, when we have conversations with folks around development and DevOps, I mean, feature flags kind of becomes an important part of it,
Oh,
because the idea being, I might have a feature that's 12 weeks long, and I don't want to have my code sit outside of the branch that's rolling into, getting continuously integrated, continuously deployed until that feature's finished.
Right.
I want to have some things where I can continuously get my code into there. So, but I don't want it running until it's done. So that's what feature flags essentially gives us the opportunity to do. So I can have my code there, make sure the integration, the unit tests, all of those things run appropriately, nothing gets corrupted, and then when that flag gets flipped, we can then do our final bits of testing and make sure everything runs together.
Yeah, what's great also, in addition to that, is what I always say to developers: get your code into the base as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Even if we turn it off, we can make sure it's not causing other trouble,
Right.
right? By mistake.
Yep.
The other thing is we want to get it in the code base so that other teams have access to it. We may turn it off for production, but that doesn't mean it's not on in some other environment where people are doing testing and things like that, right?
Yeah. And that is actually a really interesting idea, right? Because your feature, as you'll see, I guess we could have potentially different app configurations for different environments, right?
Yeah, and you can also do, I saw this today, there's these filters, and I don't know if we're going to get into those today, but there's these filters. So there's a percentage filter, just, sort of a side point of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We can deploy this this feature flag as being on in production, but using a feature flag that says only 25% of our users are going to get that feature, right? Because you can use these filters, and there's a lot of stuff that I didn't dive in too far into that, but it's these features of feature management,
Right.
that really make it more than just development tool. I mean, it's something that you can use to ease your rollout into production and things like that. There's just a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just great stuff to have in your stack.
And some of the things you'll look at it and then think, well, we already have app settings in an app service, and we have app settings in a function. Why is this different? And I think that's part of the thing. Once we see all this, so hopefully the light bulb will go on, as it did for some of us as we were kind of walking through it.
You could at some level it's not different, right? Just to be clear, like at some point, there's other ways to do this. You
Absolutely.
could do this with just a config file and blah blah blah, but that makes it hard to manage. And I
Well-
think that's the benefit of a library that we're using. It makes it easier to manage, easier to deal with in like a consistent way.
So maybe
across
And it's
applications.
one more thing.
Yeah.
It's a little more than a library, right? The library gets into
I'm
your
sorry.
code.
Yeah.
There's actually a service in Azure.
That's right.
That gives us all the extra
Yeah,
management
sorry.
pieces.
Well, after we
Yeah.
see a simple example, it might be
So I can.
more obvious what's
yeah.
going on here.
So should we look at code? Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking about from the app side, and then we'll do the Azure side.
I think it works.
Okay.
All right.
So
let me.
I have a fully baked version of this, but I thought it would be fun to start with like a new project.
Okay.
File new project. What are you using? Code or are you using Studio?
I've got Studio, Visual Studio open in here.
Okay.
I'm going to go to new project, and I'm going to do an ASP.NET Core web application,
All right.
and you can see my screen, so that's good. And I'll do next,
You
and
can
I'm
see
going
all
to
of us.
call this good old web application 2. No, how about feature management TDTS, right? The Dev Talk Show. And it's a new solution. It's going to go in repos. It's fine. And let's just go ahead. And make sure I'm not doing sometimes I'll click the wrong. Yeah, I want to make sure we get to this. I'm going to leave it as an MVC app just so we have a little UI to visualize some things and
Sure.
to see some things. And it's .NET Core, of course, right? That's what we're talking about here, .NET Core. Okay, so first thing I have, this is going to give me the old fake website, whatever you get out of the box, right?
Right.
Right off the bat, let's go in to NuGet, and let's add some NuGet packages. And I've got some notes on the side in case I forget, but I think I want, it's like feature management, I think is one of them. So let's just see, feature management ASP.NET Core. Well, I'm probably going to need, I think, so there's different libraries. Let me just look at my notes just so I have it. But there's really two libraries we need. We need Microsoft Azure App Config ASP.NET Core.
Mm-hmm.
So both of these, maybe it would be different if I wasn't building an ASP.NET app. If
Right.
I was building a console app. But I think you could use different libraries. But I'm just going to do these two that I know about. Whoop, what the heck's that? What happened there? That was weird. Oh my gosh, I don't know what that is. All right, let's try that again. Got a weird cut and paste thing going here. So I'm going to go with this library, and the other one is feature management ASP.NET Core, so I can remember that. And let's plug that in here. What? You see this? Well, you can see on the screen it says Control V. All right, feature manage. It's always something, right? This is the first one. I'll install that. While it's doing that, I'll check. The other one was called App Configuration ASP.NET Core.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe my cut and paste is broken. There we go. This will probably be the slowest part of the whole thing. It's just installing these packages, because really, it's just you'll see how you're gonna really like how easy it is to get started with this. The other one was what? App configuration? No, this one, right? I think that was the one. Hopefully I got the right two, because my cutting and pasting wasn't working. Yep, I got the right ones. Okay, so we do that. All right. Now, there's a couple ways we could come at this. We could look at it from like what part makes sense, and then wire up the parts that aren't going to work. Let's do it that way. What's that? Let's see what happened there. Okay, so if I wanted to do a feature toggle in here,
Right.
I could go right in. Now it's not going to work because I haven't wired it up yet, but let's see the feature in itself, right? So I think I say using feature, no, using, let me just see. Got it in the notes. Using, I don't have it in the notes, but it's this feature manager. This is what I really want. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll inject in a feature manager into my, let's just do it this way, private read-only feature manager. Okay, that's part of the library that I got.
Right.
And this is going to allow us to look and see what we've got. Now let me just go. Oh, there it is. Microsoft Feature Management. Okay, and I'll inject that in real quick with constructor injection, and we'll have this thing in no time at all here. Do feature management, feature manager equals feature manager. Okay, so now if I want to do something like right here, if I wanted to say, let's say I have a message for the screen, right?
Right.
And so I have var, so I'll just do string message, right, equals hello, right? But let's just say we're introducing a new feature, and if this feature is turned on, we want to announce it, right? So we want to say something like if, right? And now I'm going to look at the feature manager. I could say if feature manager dot get is enabled async. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into async. I like the async version of this thing.
Right.
Right. And then I can put the name of the feature in here. So let's call it like shiny new thing. Okay. And of course I need to do a wait on this. And I also need to turn this to async and do a task. Okay. So now you wouldn't necessarily need to do this in the controller. You might do this in another class that you call from here.
Maybe in startup or something like that.
Well, no, I was saying that I don't like to put a lot of code in the controllers.
Right.
I like to put code down in libraries.
Okay.
That would be like my business logic or something like that to control my features.
Makes sense.
But let's just say we want to do something like this. And now we might say something like, if this is the case, I say message equals check out the new shiny thing. You know, something like that, right? And we could do that. I think that that's kind of correct, except that feature management isn't really enabled. But I kind of thought it would be fun to show, like, this is what the code's going to look like, right? Now, we can get rid of this string, because I don't like to see strings in the code.
Okay.
Right? And a lot of the samples that you see, and the best practice, I think, is to use like an enum, and you could do something like, you know, I'll just put it in line up here for a minute, just so we have it. Like I could say something like public enum feature, how about like sort of possible features? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then in here, say shiny new thing is one of our features.
Okay.
Okay, and then I could come in here, if you're wondering, I could come in here and get rid of that string, right? And I think you do what, name of, and I say, what do I call it? Possible features dot shiny new thing, and that I think sort of cleans it up a little bit. I probably forgot a paren there, right? So I like that a little bit, by the way, right?
Okay.
But without anything else, I think you can imagine how this could work, right? Like this isn't so hard to do, right?
Right.
Now I'm doing it async, so it's a little longer, but I think that's the right way to do it. I guess I can make this shorter if I wanted to. And I just say feature manager is enabled async, and I can toggle that feature on and off.
Right.
Now,
right.
of course, we need to wire this up. So to wire it up, and this is where I need to check my notes. There's a couple things we need to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to configure services. It's always middleware, right? If it's ASP.NET or if it's .NET Core, it's middleware, right?
So I mean, just because you're using the built-in dependency injection to get a feature manager doesn't mean that one's been set up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I do add, and I don't have the using in here yet. Add feature management. Is that what it was? I hope that's what it was. Let's see if I get a little help there. Yeah, look at that. Okay, add feature management. And what else you got to do? You always got to come. I mean, I always find it interesting that you got to come down into this section and tell the app to use. I don't know what this one is. Let's see if it comes up with F. Use. I don't see feature. Let's see what it was. Use Azure App Configuration.
Oh.
Okay. All right. And Azure App Configuration is a
Now, I might not need that one yet for this demo, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually kind of curious to see if I could leave this out for now.
Okay.
Because I want to show the easiest way to do this,
right.
right? The easiest way to do this, let me just check my notes and see if there's another step I'm forgetting, because I don't need to do the startup one yet. Okay, so I think if I just go in to my, so I can run this right now, and I think if I'm right about this, it will not fail.
Won't fail.
It won't see the feature,
I agree.
but it won't fail, right?
And so if the feature was there,
Let's see.
all right, so it's not going to run.
Oh well, that's another problem here. I gotta. Oh, I don't remember doing that.
Just leftover using.
Well, yeah, unless
big
I
deal.
type something up on my finger by mistake somehow. It seems a weird thing. Yeah. All right. I mean, I was going fast here.
It's okay. All good.
Oh, I thought I put that in there. Maybe I hit something on the button. I could have sworn I put that extra in there while we were talking about. Okay. So I think this is actually going to work, and just say, well, actually, I don't have a breakpoint in here, but I mean, I don't have anything displaying anything. So,
Right. And although we have that feature is enabled check, that there's no real feature that would run even if it was enabled.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just put the breakpoint in here so we can see what happens, and I'll do it again just so we see that, like, there's no harm that has come to my application at this point.
No
It
code was
says
harmed in
hello.
the running of this.
Right? And then it comes in here, and it's not enabled. It doesn't know how to, it could be enabled. I haven't done anything to enable it. And so the message is still hello, right? So everything's great.
Yep.
Okay. And the next thing I'll show is the easy way to go into this thing. And I'm going to go into app settings for now. And Rich, we were talking about this earlier. I learned this while you were in the other meeting.
Okay.
So I can come in here, and I hope I get the syntax right, but I can come in here and say feature management, management, okay, and I say, what was it, shiny new thing, and I'm going to say false. True. Let's say true. Now, I'm not positive I have this right. I'll be honest. I could double check this. I could double check the syntax, but we could, and this is not the best way to do it, but we could just control this right here in the app settings file, and I could turn shiny new thing. Now, I just want to make sure I got the name of that right. Was it shiny new thing? What did I call it? I called it shiny new thing. Let's see if I'm right, and I might have the syntax wrong of that config section. So let's go down into here.
Survey says.
Yep. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. So that worked. Now this is not best practice.
Okay, but that's
from
just
like a
let's-
development
yeah.
standpoint, offline without Azure.
I mean, I think we can come back to that. So by default, with the feature management libraries, so
Yes.
which are included, we got a using statement up there. You bring those in NuGet. Pretty quick to set up, and you can just start writing code that says. You didn't have to write any of the code that says go to configuration, find out what
Right.
this variable
It
is.
knows how
You
to-
just started writing that, and if you didn't change your, here's another thing: is if you didn't create a shiny new thing feature in any of your app settings, nothing blew up.
Right.
It
Right.
just said, I guess it's not enabled.
I guess it's
So
not
it's
enabled,
it's
yeah.
definitely opt-in.
It's opt-in. Like
Okay.
if look, we didn't have this before, and I guess if I commented this out or whatever, it would
Right.
work.
You
know,
didn't
like,
have you didn't even have a feature management
didn't
section
have a
at
feature
all.
management section.
Right.
So to me, this is one of those things like, because Rich and I were talking earlier, like, because we're going to connect this to Azure, which is the
Yeah,
right way
yeah.
to do this. But
Right.
hey, I'm in a plane,
Yeah, you can
know,
get to work.
and I don't have Wi-Fi or whatever, and I wanted to make sure, like, how would this work? And that's sort of how it would work. Now,
So
this is pretty simple. We
right.
can make as many of these feature toggles as we want, and there's some other ways we can use these feature toggles. Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the Azure side of it now.
right. Well, now
Mhm.
let's stop for just a second.
Okay.
Just a second, because we've said a couple times. You've said this is not the way to do this, and so
It's a way to do this.
right.
I don't.
But
Go ahead.
but what I'm wondering is, you've said it a couple times. So let's talk
Okay.
with either the community or each other here is out. The reason why you probably don't want these feature toggles to be sitting in the app settings JSON right in your source code folder is
Well, I think the main reason is that once this application goes to production or even to other environments, it's nice to have like a UI where I can toggle these things and I can control them.
Sure.
And maybe I'm not even the one who controls them, right? Maybe it's not a developer that even controls them.
Usually isn't. Yeah.
Right.
is what you're getting at that the better value in feature management is to be able to turn features on and off just in time with no deployment.
That's right. That's really what I was getting at, and I
Yeah.
think you said it better. Is that I shouldn't have to deploy my app again to make this change, and leaving it in here. If we want to turn it off, I gotta come back in here, get the code, change
Right.
it to false, redeploy,
Yeah.
go through 6 environments to get to production.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what we were trying to
Yeah.
do, right?
So I guess I just want to make sure is you've said that a couple times and I agreed with you.
Yeah.
But I said let's just take a moment to explain why it is that we are now going to go to an Azure service, which I believe is Azure App Configuration. But
Yeah.
let's find out. Why don't I just follow along with you instead of jumping the gun? But I will tell you this. So observations, right?
Yeah.
Super easy to add the NuGet package. You're already starting to write if code, which no matter what, I think this is a true statement. No matter how you implement feature flags and feature management, whether you use this or you use a third-party like service or you roll your own thing, there's going to be if feature flag is on. You're going to have to, that code has got to exist.
Some form of an if statement.
Of
Now, there are
decisions.
some other ways.
Some ways
because
to branch.
You can actually do some of it with attributes.
Oh, well, that will be really cool to look at.
On like whole methods, like I could put it on a but that's another
And
story.
that's thanks to the feature management library.
That's thanks to the
So
feature
that's cool.
management library.
Okay,
But
so
that's
let's-
a form of
yeah.
an if statement, if you will, right?
It
You
is.
have to somewhere say. And one of the things I never liked about feature management, I should sorry, let me say that better. Not that I don't like about feature management, but that I've always bothered me about feature flags and feature toggles is that I have code in here that eventually now I have to come back and clean. Once this thing goes to production and it's done, I do want to come back in here and get rid of that stuff because I always think that's the best way to do it. So this shiny new thing goes live in
Right.
production, and we test it. We turn it on, we turn it off, we turn it on, and it works great. Everybody's thrilled with it. 6 months later, I don't know if I want to be able to have this code in my class. Like I'd like to get rid of it, and I think I'm going to want to come back and clean up those toggles eventually. But that's just something I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Maybe we jumped too far ahead. So now I saw this, pretty
Yeah.
easy to get started. But now the question is, all right, a more production ready scenario would be
Yeah. So Rich is going to show his screen.
There we go.
Oh, he's got himself. Was I on? We didn't have the little.
We were.
We were. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know we had that.
I went in and out when I had to go take care of the background
okay,
noise.
Cool. No, I was like that. I think it looks cool.
But yeah. So this might take a few seconds to spin up, but we're willing to, writing code with that and that, as they say. In this case, we're actually going to look for a service. So I have this app configuration here. And if we
Yep.
go to, I'm just going to go to home, load up another instance of my Azure instance here real quick, just to show some of the similarities here. I'm going to look at this.
Do you have Azure Mask?
Azure Mask is on, yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute. It was
It
on.
is.
Yeah, I think it is because it says Microsoft
Yeah,
doesn't have your email.
not
address.
seeing your email.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's interesting. Did not.
Oh, look, it's showing your
All right, let's just get out of here and go to here. So we look at configuration, right? So this is an app service, a web application that we have running, and you can see that we have all of these key value pairs inside of our configuration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are local to this website. So as we deploy other websites, we deploy other services, I've got to recreate those settings over into those other environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I can see you're using Key Vault for a few of them.
Yep.
Which is cool, right?
Yeah, and that's just to sidebar a little bit. Key Vault is a way of securing your secrets, your configuration strings, put them in a way so that those who they're securely limited by a small number of people who have access to that data, but they're shared out with developer teams via the URLs into Key Vault. So they don't know the actual keys to the kingdom; they just know how to access them in their code. let's see if we go to app configuration. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand up this app configuration, and any one of these services that are part of our larger app can all point to here and pull those values together and be able to use those values in the code that's there.
Yeah, so I want to
Go for it.
This is something I hadn't considered until you explained that to me earlier today, right? So going back to what you were saying, Chris, you were saying, why don't you want this in your app config? In your app settings
Right.
.json? Well, we know one of the reasons, but another one is, what if I have a web API and a backing service and a UI app and
Okay.
3 other functions that all care
Yeah.
about this same toggle?
Right.
Right? I don't want to have to go to every one of these JSON
Okay.
files.
Yeah.
What Rich explained to me was, and that's one of the benefits that was like, whoa, how did I didn't even think about that.
Mhm.
But having it in a central place gives us the ability to turn it on for all of them.
Yeah, and if you think about launching a feature,
Right.
a feature might have all of those things together, right?
Sure.
So one
Totally.
place to make it happen.
Totally.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and hit create. And very simple set of items that I can put into here. So I could say, we're going to call this TDTA. I can see I've done some demos before. Demo app config.
And again, I was looking for this inside of my app service. I couldn't find this earlier. I was like, where's this configuration stuff? And I'm like, oh. So just to be clear, we're not in our app service.
No.
We're in
Our
a
app
new
service still
service
sits over
called
here.
Right.
app
Yeah.
configuration.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally standing
This is
this
a
up.
this is a product.
This is a yeah.
Exactly. It's
It's an
a,
Azure service. Yep.
it's a service in Azure. So I'm going to use
Okay.
the other resource group that we've used for some of our other demos. We'll keep it in East US. And then there's a bit of pricing involved here as well. So if we click the little hyperlink, we can go out to a separate
So he
page
picked
and
free.
see.
I use
No, I'm
free.
kidding.
It's pretty cheap, by the way. It looked like one of those things that, like, for pretty minimal. Like, look what it is. Like $1.20 a day. If you're doing something that's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's $30 a month. What is it? $40 a month.
But certainly for a developer scenario, right? 1,000
Right.
calls a month. That should be fine, right? Shouldn't run into those too often. So I'm just going to keep it as the free tier, especially because I don't think we're going to hit that tonight. So we'll hit create.
Uh-oh.
Oh. So I get one. I
Yes.
can't have multiple free ones. And my other one was a free one.
Right.
All right.
You could turn it off and just do it now and turn it off.
Good. We could also use the one I baked earlier.
Sure. I mean, essentially, there's not really
This is
much
it.
to
This is the settings.
Right. I did
right?
this earlier. This is it. You do this, you create it. Why don't you go over and it'll be faster this way anyway, because we don't have to wait for it to spin up.
Yep. So, lose my edits. That's fine.
Unless you have something in there that you don't want us to see.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
So you even named it like I was going to use it for the show tonight.
Yeah,
so,
TDS app config.
so let's
Look at all
see.
these metrics, by the way. This is interesting.
Yeah, that is. Interesting.
Why is something hitting it? What did you hook this up to?
Oh, so I built a. If you want, I can show what I built because it's a little different.
Well, why don't we stick with this part of it first, right?
Yep.
Not to, yeah.
Yep. So I know we went into redo access keys. Yeah. So the important thing is the access keys, right?
Right.
So these are all kind of blanked out and not readable on the screen. But this is how whatever component of your application is using that framework that we've installed and injected into the code. This is the connection string to say this is where you point for your app settings. So much like you mentioned earlier on, where I might have been the sidebar conversation we had before we got started of, we've got things like your app settings that you pointed to in your code. We've got user secrets that it's a secure way of getting configuration settings into your code and not having them get checked into the repository with all the rest of the code that you're going to push out. And then this being another one of those mechanisms where those settings might come from. But I just need, from my code perspective, need to know how to find it. And that's what the connection string is here. So we copied the connection string.
And what's nice, by the way, is there's read-write keys
Yeah.
and read-only keys.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I think that sort of speaks for itself, but I liked that was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in theory you could have, instead of coming to the Azure portal, you could have a management admin page that's
Right.
accessible to a certain group of end users
Yeah.
who have that capability,
Mhm.
right? So we can do that. I can copy that and I can put that aside, and you'll see where when we get to my code where we use it. So that's the one thing we looked at. The other one I looked at in setting this up is that feature manager. So what
Yeah.
are the actual settings that I want to have included inside of my feature?
So
And
we could add shiny new thing.
So we could do that. We could go here and say add a key called shiny new thing. No label. We can put a description on it if we want.
Now, are you familiar enough with like what would the label be? Is that like a tag, I think, or
That's a good question.
I haven't seen like any explanation yet on what that is, and all the demos just say leave it blank.
Leave it blank. Yes.
Because I thought I saw when you save it, let's just leave this for a second. When you save it, you go back to the other page. It seems like there's some search features that you could look for things, and so
let's try something. I mean, I think of a label as something that gives me a little basic, a little different.
It's not the key, but it's like a more readable version, right?
Yep.
Maybe that's what it is. That might be it.
That's what I'm going with. We'll see how that flies.
Yeah,
And this may
sure.
break it.
Yeah.
So cool. So I've got it. I can go ahead and say apply, and I'm going to leave that feature off. Right.
Yeah.
The reason being is that
Label.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to here, and then Andy, you're in the Discord, right?
I am in the Discord. We're seeing the Discord on your screen. I don't know if you want to see the Discord on your screen.
Well, no, that's not what's going on live.
No, it's not.
It's
not live. He's got it because there's a this.
Oh, I'm seeing your screen.
So
Right. I forgot that I'm seeing your
I
screen.
guess what we're saying is there's a shared secret that makes
Yes.
this work.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
so
the shared secret is that connection string that we saw in the first setting that I looked at.
Right.
So
before I get it, now there's a couple ways I can use that. Let me go. So now I have to take that secret and apply it in my code, and there's a little bit of setup I need to do to get to that step. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I didn't show earlier, and although I mentioned at one point, right, was I have to go to.
Let me bring you back up,
sure.
right?
Bring me back up. Yeah, I'll just go and get this ready.
All right, you ready? Tell me when.
Yeah. So just to be clear, we're
Yeah,
talking
all right,
about
yeah.
feature flags tonight and how you can implement them in your application using the feature management libraries, and we're tying in Azure App Configuration. So we've chosen to use the Microsoft.Feature Management package out of NuGet, and then we're using it in a .NET Core app. And then at first, Andy demonstrated using it all locally by adding the feature flag right there in app settings. But now we're using Azure App Configuration to say, let's store it centrally so that one, in this case, there's only one app, but as we talked about earlier, could be multiple interested
whole
parties.
suite,
The whole
right?
services
Yeah.
might be interested, a front end might be interested. So let's see here. Now that's
Yeah. So you want to go to me. So we sort of saw about wiring this up. There's a couple things I need to do to take this to the next level. And I realized as I was putting this line in earlier when it says use Azure App Configuration, that's probably, so we didn't need it before, we need it now. Okay, we have to turn that on. And then if I go over to my program, where I start my, host builder stuff, and I'm going to just comment this out so we have it. And I'm going to add in some new code here, which didn't really format very nicely, did it? But right here, what this is saying, this is some other stuff, but right here you see add Azure App Configuration, options, connect, and get the connection string
okay.
from my get the app config value from my connection strings wherever I store my connection strings.
Right.
Now, connection strings can be stored in a bunch of different places.
Right.
Sure.
Matter of fact, to go full circle, I could put nothing in here, deploy it to Azure, and just add the connection string on the Azure portal.
Absolutely.
Right. I could do it that way as well. There's a lot of ways I could do it, but we want to demonstrate this running locally.
Right.
As well. So the next thing I would do is I would come in and I'm going to go into, and I'm not going to do it yet, but I'm going to go into my app settings development, which is the one that doesn't get checked in, right? And I would go in here and say connection strings. No, that's not right. It's, oh yeah, it is right. And then it's called app, what's it called? App settings?
Yes.
I think. And then here is where off screen I will paste in the key.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to show that. So if you want to turn off my,
Well,
and there's other ways to do it, like as a secret.
Yes.
Sure.
And as a user secret.
as a user secret or whatever
Yeah.
it's called, right?
And
You
that
can
would-
do it locally, right?
You could do it locally with user secrets,
Yeah.
I think.
I'm not
Yeah.
great
That's
at
what
that.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
one of the articles I saw suggested doing it that way, as Rich reminded me earlier. But I'm just
We can show you real quick how to do it in code or in Visual
while
Studio.
you're doing it, I'm off, right? So
Yeah, you're off.
so
So in mine, I'm just gonna bring mine up real quick.
Yeah. So we'll get to this in a little bit, but we had our friend we on Mixer we had and I don't know if I'm going to get the name right, but it's if it's a Rune Xboxer had said, "Hey, you know, what's the topic?" and then it's clearly has joined up with us and asked is we'll get to this in a little bit, is, you know, we're getting this set up. So how does Azure App Configuration deal with environments, dev, QA, UAT? Maybe we can talk about that in a little bit, because right now we're still doing we're just sort of
doing
getting
one.
through the first example.
yeah, but that's a really good
Yeah.
question, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have it in there now. And let
We're
me
back
check.
to you.
Yeah, I
Well,
closed that.
And so to be
app
clear,
settings
we just
file
went
here.
off screen here because
Yeah.
this, like a lot of times in Azure, there's a secret or something that wires up, you know, your connection between one thing and another, and you just don't want those
Yeah.
recorded for all time, just in case. I don't know if you plan on destroying this app configuration later, but even if you weren't, you know,
Right.
it's like, what did I forget?
Yes.
So let's see if this works. So right now that feature was off in the Azure portal.
That feature is off in the Azure portal, correct? And
So
you
let's
had
just-
it on in your app setting at one point.
That's
You
right.
did see
I
it.
do still have it on. If we go to app settings, it is still set to be true.
Right.
But this should override that, which seems a little backwards. You might think local would override this.
Well,
but
let's
from
find
what I
out.
Let's find
read-
out.
Okay.
From what I read,
It goes the
it
other
will
way.
use this first. Because remember, I configured it to use.
Maybe that makes sense. So
Because
that,
what I did is remember in program. Let's see if I'm not too late here. In program, I came in here. Connection strings. Maybe I spelled something wrong. Because
I had that happen to me as well. It was.
I did too. Connection strings. I had it happen to me. So do me a favor, take me off screen.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna double check the spelling of these words here. I'm just gonna paste them right in here. Yeah, see, something's different. I thought, no. All right, whatever. Connection strings. I hate when this. Can't see it on screen, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, we're all watching your screen though.
Yeah. And
So I was taking a look at some documentation on Azure App Configuration, which, you know, they for their .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, .NET Framework examples, they all use Microsoft.Feature Management, the NuGet package we started the night with.
Yep.
There's also support here showing for Azure Functions, for Java Spring Boot. I even read somewhere that, you know, your TypeScript front end, your JavaScript front end could take advantage of this. So that's pretty cool.
I had it as app setting, not app config. That was what it was. So you,
Oh,
you want
okay.
to bring
Bring it
back my
back.
screen, and let's try it again now, and run it, and see if we got this right. What is that? That's so small. Oh, no. Connection string doesn't have the value for keyword. I don't even know what that is. Connection string doesn't have value for keyword. All right, that's weird.
Did you, when you pasted that in, since I'm not seeing your screen,
Yeah.
did you get everything?
I thought I did. Now, when you sent it to me, being a little cryptic here, it says endpoint equals. Was I supposed to use the word endpoint equals? I don't.
Oh yeah, you need that.
You need
You
that.
need the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't put that part in because I thought that was just you telling me.
No,
you
no,
know.
I can see that. I took it out of my notepad where I had stored it and just dropped it in there.
Yeah.
so.
Okay. So let me just go back. So a little
Third
bit
time's
of
charm.
hiccups on these things, but that's
It's
part of,
always
like,
three
what you
times,
do.
right? It's like
Yeah.
3 trips to Home Depot.
Yes.
Yeah.
To get any project
Every
completed on
now
the
and
weekend.
then, I get a project, and I'm working around the house, and like I go to Home Depot, I come back, and I make everything work, or Lowe's, by the way, right?
Sure.
And
think
the
we're
project works,
sponsored by
and
either
I'm
one.
like, I'm strutting around the house, like I want to get shirts made up that says like 1 trip only to Lowe's or
And
Home
the
Depot.
date
Like, I
underneath
am
it,
so
right?
proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, you know. Oh look, okay, you can go
All
to my
right, so
screen.
now we think that we have your configuration correct.
Right.
And maybe what we can do in a little bit is delete the connection string and show what you did put into app settings.
Yeah,
but we won't worry
that's
about that right now.
right.
And you're not crashing. Here you
Not
are.
crashing.
You're getting to the line of code that
Oh,
says, "Is it enabled?"
Look at that. It did.
And your
think it's
local over. We think the local
I
overrode.
could be wrong. It looks like the local did override.
Yeah,
The
because you're set to
other.
off in.
What's that?
You are set to off in.
Yes. Yeah. So
And
let
now-
me just go back. So let's try that. Let me take out that section.
Can
Now-
you do that?
Why?
Yeah, I can do that without
Okay.
that. It's
One
different.
thing to think about, right?
Yep.
Where did you put that? You put that in the app settings.
Right.
Dot developer, right? That's
No.
your. No.
I think it's.
Yeah, but I'm running in. Yeah, but I'm running in developer mode.
And I think the comment in the documentation was if you had it in your app settings, that app config would override it. And I think what I'm, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the order in which all those kind of get loaded up.
I don't
See if
know.
we can find
That's
it. It looks
interesting.
like you're just in plain old app settings.json.
Well, that's where this setting is. Now,
Right.
in my app settings.developer JSON,
That's where the
I
connection.
don't have
string
the feature management toggle. All I have is the connection string over
is.
there.
Sorry. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I didn't put
see
it over there, right?
Okay.
So let's take that out. I didn't even comment it. Let's just take it out and run it again and see what happens. And then we'll find out if or did I forget to wire something up, which is also entirely possible. Okay. That time now we don't know if it's connecting to your service yet,
But it skipped it.
but it skipped it, right? Because I took it out.
Yep.
So now, why don't you turn it on in Azure Portal? And I'm going to stop my service. Now, I'm stopping this. One thing it's of note while you're toggling this is that it caches these things for 30 seconds. I think it said 30 seconds. So if the app is live and you're making changes to the toggle and you're going, wait, it's not working, you got to wait a little while. But by stopping my app and restarting my app, I think it clears
It's gonna
out.
go yeah, because essentially those are sitting in memory, right? When you
Sitting
stop
in
the
memory.
app, the
Did
memory
you
goes.
set it?
It is set.
Okay. Well, let's see what happens. Okay. Dun 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 dun. Oh, still didn't get it. So that means after all that maybe I forgot something. I did that. That's odd.
And it would make sense then that something is busted then because it's not seeing my setting, and that's why it read the one it saw in the app settings locally.
That's what I thought. I thought it was supposed to, but we'll try that later. We'll put it back.
Yeah.
Now I did this myself earlier today, and it worked on the first try. So what did I do wrong? Did you name it Shiny New Thing?
Shiny new thing. One N.
One N.
Just like that.
Yeah. I guess that's
Capitalization and all.
right. And this possible features doesn't matter. That's just a thing. So
Mhm.
it's basically a string, Shiny New Thing. And in my program, I have this. Use feature flags. And in startup, I've used Azure App Config. So what did I forget? I turned it on. Unless I'm wrong about the caching.
No, you're right. You're right about the caching.
But stopping my app would refresh the. I have to.
It
right, 'cause
would.
It's out of memory.
Yep.
So.
I mean, you could recycle it again and see, but that shouldn't have.
Yeah. I
I mean,
don't.
certainly more than 30 seconds of chatting
I
about
want
it.
to look. Yeah. Try it again. It's really weird. I thought we did everything we're supposed to do.
And you have under it, so you made the modifications to startup, right?
I did.
And you put the so I don't know if the order makes a difference. I have configure services where add feature management is after the control
Yeah, I was
reviews.
just looking at that before. So in the configure services, you have added after add controllers with views.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember seeing demos. Well, it works.
Well, that's not the same.
That's not the.
That's not the same
working.
as the configure
Then the
method, which is a
configure method
pipeline.
is the new one.
Yeah. So use Azure App Configuration. That's what we need to probably take a look at.
Yeah, I think.
And that's is that in the program?
That is in startup. And what I had was user Azure app.
No, I'm sorry. The Azure App Configuration setting happens in the program.cs.
That's where this configuration happens.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Okay.
where I want to make sure that's good.
So feature flags. And that's purposely why I just did a whole paste into this thing.
Yeah.
Even though the formatting is a little weird when I pasted it.
Well, you can fix that. Control K, Control D.
You know what? It doesn't always do things when you have these weird long statements. It changed it. It didn't. Just watch it. Just did it. See?
You held Control K.
I'm doing it. Control K, Control. I've done this before.
It's like never failed for me in my entire life of using Visual Studio.
With these things, it does.
Okay.
With these long statements, I find it doesn't wrap
like
them
it's pretty
correctly.
good.
But if I do this, like this will work. If I do like, that works, right? But
okay.
it doesn't like these long. This is one line of code, right? This is one of those. What do you call it? It's a lambda, obviously, but like, what do you call it? Like, it's a statement.
I wonder if you change if you.
I even tried doing like this.
That's what I was gonna say. It didn't try to format that.
Yep, I tried all those things. I tried this earlier because I noticed it was bugging me. I'm like,
all right. So, anyways,
So.
The only suggestion I would have, and this doesn't make sense because the way you wrote it or started to write it in the settings file makes sense. It's connection strings, colon, open brackets. The way mine is written, it's actually written as a setting, connection strings, colon, app config, colon, like.
Oh.
And then
one line.
It's all in one line.
Now, one thing is, I'll try that. In my own demo where I had it worked the way I had it, and also,
I've done it that way.
And also, when I had the wrong connection string, it was failing. Remember when I didn't include that one keyword in the connection string? It was failing.
Yeah.
So it's obviously getting it.
True.
So,
should we take it? Can you, if I swap around, can you flip the connection strings just so I can take another set of eyes at it?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Just like the whole thing there. I'm gonna take.
Can you scroll right?
Yeah, sure. I think that equal. They all end in equal sign. I'm not giving up any secrets when I say that, but it's nice to see that there. We're at the end, unless it's double equals. But I don't know.
And that's what I wanted to check. It is just one equal.
So Azure App Configuration is something that you instantiate like an app service. You could have one or more of them.
Yeah.
But I think what we discovered tonight, or at least what Rich showed us, is that on a subscription you can only have one free one.
One free one. Yeah.
Is that per? I mean, I guess it's not important if you have the exact answer, but is it per subscription?
It looks to be per subscription.
I guess it kind of makes sense because otherwise, what do I need standard for? I'll just keep making free stores. So now, if we were talking about test, staging, production, that would be the idea. Is you would have you would probably, one way to go about that is to say have multiple stores. Like you would actually create multiple. I know this gets confusing. The product is called app configuration. You would create multiple instances of those stores. And the reason you do that is because you can now control permissions separately. So, I mean, tonight we're using a connection string. I believe, could you use like an Azure Managed Identity? So that perhaps it's an app service that's going to go talk to the store. So you set the managed identity of the app service, you set it on the store, and now there's no connection string to deal with. I'm not sure if that's how the code actually works. I just thought to myself, I'm thinking a little out loud when I say that.
When I say you can, it's actually the way they have the identity set up here.
Okay.
It's so that your app configuration can talk to something like Key Vault.
Oh, okay.
They're doing it that way.
So that's interesting. So let's clear that up a little bit. So in app configuration, you're doing key values.
Yes.
But you could now it sounds like you're telling me I could go configure app configuration to say go look in Key Vault
for this value.
Yeah.
Here's the key.
It's a secret.
Go find the value out there because I don't want my developers to see it.
Okay.
And just go get it out there. In order to do that, I set up a policy in Key Vault. You want me to show that?
Sure. I don't know if we'll get a lot of value out of it from there to code without maybe.
Hang on.
That might be something we do in the future, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna fix one other thing.
But that was an interesting point. Is that I said, wow, this service was to store these values, to store these feature Well, I guess it doesn't have to be feature flags. What's happening here is the feature management package is taking advantage of app configuration.
Yeah.
And then if app configuration has something that's secret and you want to manage it a certain way, only one administrator is allowed to deal with this secret.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's
Sure.
a license. I don't know. It's
got
something.
PII data
Yeah.
or something important.
really
You
important.
Limit the number of people who get
Right.
access to it.
So you could turn around and have app configuration go to a key vault. Well, you could roll all this yourself if you wanted to. Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
You could have your whole feature flag outfit going to Key Vault, but then you own that.
Exactly.
And you don't get any benefit from the team maybe working on feature management library, the feature management library, Microsoft.feature management, working on app configuration, working on all that. We're going to get that benefit now
Yeah.
because we bought into it.
I think, the phrase that I've heard oftentimes is, every line of code you write, you have to care and feed for.
Yeah, you own it. Yeah, you build it, you buy it. And so, we had those great questions from Arun tonight, and I appreciate him asking about should we create a key vault. He said a key/vault for each environment. I think what we're saying here is you would create a new, or one thing you could do is create a new app configuration store per. I suppose if you wanted to be really thrifty, or maybe you didn't need the kind of security at the beginning, you could probably come up, but now you own this, come up with some way to say like, well, that configuration there, dev dash.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you got to deal with that.
Right.
So
there may be some features inside of here that I haven't seen yet.
yeah. So where I got this from is the FAQ. I don't know if we should bring it up. So Azure App Configuration, the documentation has a FAQ. And there is a question in there that says, how should I store configurations for multiple environments, parentheses, test, staging, production, and so on. And that's kind of where that led me to sort of, to ask you control who can access app configuration at a per store level, use a separate store for each environment that requires different permissions. This approach provides the best security isolation.
Yeah.
So that's an approach.
Makes
And then
sense.
right underneath it, best practices. So there's some great reading here about, hey, what should you do? Even talking about like how should you compose your keys and values. I didn't get to read all this, but interesting.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
So let me just close this. I went into the connection string that you gave me, and I trashed the key. Like I made sure it was a broken key. I ran it again, and I would get back an error, and it says like this key is not valid. It really tells me like I'm connecting to your service. I think it's trying to do everything it needs to do.
You're just not seeing shiny new things.
Well, let's remove that label.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
That was the one thing we did differently than both of our tests.
Or we kind of went off the script, right?
We went off the script and we said, hey, what does that thing do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And watch
Oh,
that
Andy's
would
getting
be,
serious.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I'll
getting
punch the
serious.
jacket.
I got my MVP.
Wait, what shirt?
Oh, this is an
Oh,
MVP
hey, yeah.
Summit shirt
Nice.
from
2016.
2016.
Pretty cool.
And Summit's canceled and all.
No,
but,
it is some of it is
Well,
not
yeah,
canceled.
that's
Some of it
true.
is an online. There's a lot of headlines out there. A lot of people just wrote the quick headline that said Microsoft cancels MVP Summit, and our friend Shahid Chowdhury has been retweeting every one of those with the comment that it is an online only event. So he is trying to get the word out that the MVPs are still going to get together.
Yeah.
So
In fact,
I saw. I don't know if I can find it. I saw something on Twitter where somebody posted. I think it was like, "Is my conference canceled?"
They're
Oh,
starting
no.
to
Because
build.
they're
a-
all
Yeah.
my
Well, next week Microsoft is was planning to host a conference on WSL on campus, Windows Subsystem for Linux, and they are going the same route. And I wasn't planning to go to that, but now that it's an online only event, they specifically said on the website, so if you weren't planning to come, sign up. And I thought, hey, now I could go check out the WSL conf from home. So
Nice.
I guess we could call that a silver lining.
wish I could find that because it looked like a really cool website. And now I'll never
While
find. Did
you're-
you fix that thing?
All right, so what do we
While
think?
you're-
What do we think we're doing here? We're looking at the app configuration
Wait,
store,
you came to me. Hang on, I'm not ready. Here we go.
the
No,
feature
this is me.
manager,
That's you.
and
Oh, that's you. Oh, I thought
and
that was
originally the key shiny new thing had a label, and now you both kind of said like, I didn't try that in
you.
rehearsal,
Yeah.
So
you
let's
fixed the
see.
label.
Fix the label. You ready?
Let
To,
it run.
and it is
Yeah,
on.
me, I'm running it.
App is running. Here we go. This is all it. Drum roll, please. Live coding. And and yes, the feature is on. And
that label is what broke
you
it.
may have stumbled into.
I don't know what that label
So
is.
you may have stumbled into something in the best practices fact about key value compositions that I'm telling you I was speed reading as you were working here, and it said, let's look at an example. Suppose
bring
you
up
have
your screen?
Yeah. Suppose you have a setting named asset 1 whose value might vary based on the development environment. You could create a key named asset 1 with an empty label and a label named development. So it looks like you would write more code to filter based on labels. So that
So
label
maybe
is
that's-
important.
So that
We don't
I'm
know-
Not, right. I'm
we
not
don't know it.
passing a label of
Yeah, it wasn't. It was filtered out, I guess.
Maybe
But
this
let's
goes
not
to-
pretend we know
I'm
that
wondering
part.
though. Right. We're just guessing here, but
Yeah.
that goes to the question: what do we? Maybe that's how we handle. I want to turn this on in my staging environment, in my production environment. Maybe we have to put those in there, and that's the thing we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, and you could probably inject those as they go through each environment, right? It's not like you're putting that into your settings specifically. Your DevOps pipeline, whatever it is that's pushing your code, can inject those in each of those spaces.
So right.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you read the best practices because there's some great ideas in here, including in that very same idea they talk about taking advantage of .NET Core's configuration stacking, which I think we're all pretty familiar with, where start by checking this out and perhaps an app settings JSON, but then go to environment variables, and so your app service config kicks in. And I think the purpose of that was convenience for us developers, right? Like I can just F5 the code, check it out, F5, it works, check it back in, commit it back, who cares, because the real environment is set up to override. Anyways, interesting. Labels look like they matter.
Wow.
Let's learn
really
what
sorry. That is
why we do it.
labels do.
It was my fault. I said, "Hey, let's try putting a label in it."
I was
What
with
did I
you. I thought. What
That
did we
was
think
a
the label
bad
was? Right?
idea, right? We deviated from the script.
Yeah, well, that's what happens, right? With live code, and you do something. So Dustin Horn says he says I literally just implemented this today using.
Oh wow.
If you're here, Dusty, using the micro. So we started off first by we discovered offline. We discovered the Microsoft.feature management NuGet package, and that led us to Azure App Configuration and so on, because we were talking about feature flags. And we said, well, what are different ways that is there a simple way for a .NET developer, whether it's .NET Core, .NET Framework? I did double check while we were talking. Microsoft.feature management is .NET Standard 2. There's examples for both the .NET Core side, the .NET Framework side. There's examples for the Azure Function side and the Java Spring Boot side, which isn't going to use that NuGet package, obviously.
Do you want to see another feature that I learned about? It's quick.
Yeah.
Another little tidbit.
Yeah. We roll back to you.
Yeah, sure.
Dustin says he found app configuration first and walked the other direction, which makes sense.
Yeah.
We just happened to stumble on that library, and I mean, at least for us, Rich might have said like, "Nah, I know how to do this."
No.
Nah.
So if I go to View Imports, I can paste in. Whoops, I got a little
ahead of yourself there.
Oh, sorry. Yep. So I added a tag helper for Microsoft Feature Management.asp.NET Core. I added this tag helper,
Oh, okay.
and now if I go into Index, I could do something like this. Let's do this. I'm gonna say feature name equals shiny new thing.
And features a tag helper. Can we tell that because it's purple?
I think that's what
how
gives it away.
I think that's how the tooling works for tag helpers in ASP.NET MVC Core.
Okay. So I did that. Okay. And now, let's say we want to do that. And I don't know. Let's just say the original way had it as like an H4 or something. It doesn't really matter, right? And I'll get rid of this.
Okay. You
right?
wrap in the tool. Okay, I see what you're doing
but
now.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Right.
This one says negate
Yeah. Okay.
equals true.
Oh,
So
that's.
I want to flip it and say if this is not true, if I want to show this one. If it is true, I want to show this top one.
Makes sense.
That makes sense, right?
Yep.
So what I could do then?
It's too bad it's not flag equals off or something.
Yeah, I know. I thought negate was a little like.
Yeah,
wordy or
because now
something like that,
I've
right?
already.
So what do I do if I want to go like model string?
Yeah, and
Right.
Dustin said he used labels for environments, so it tripped us up a little bit here. We could probably figure out how to use them in a better way, but by
Yeah.
turning the label on, the example that was prepped and ready to go didn't.
So I want
It just didn't work.
That,
But we're working now.
Can I do this here? That model.
But it's a live show, so we fought through it and we talked a little about the value of this.
Will
And
this
We
work?
do it so you don't have to.
yeah, we
So I just want to see if this will work here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass. I don't usually use strings as a model, but if I pass the message into here.
oh, look at this. This is
So let's see now.
and this
So-
wasn't in your original demo, was it? So we're just on the fly. We're gonna make the message.
Well, you know what the heck.
The view is
Um,
getting a model
no, it
with
was-
the message.
Yeah, it was something I played with today.
Yep.
So now we should change. This should change. And again, I've never passed a string as a model, but I assumed you could do that. Quite frankly, my model is usually a little bit more robust than that. Let's go down. Well, let's just let it rip here. And if it's an check out the new shiny thing was not found. The view was not found. Oh, that's because you can't put a string in here like that. It thinks I'm looking for the name of the view.
Can't you do a view bag message?
I could. I was thinking about doing that earlier. Right? I was thinking about that. So let's just do that. Viewbag dot message equals message.
So the way you chose to do
Yeah,
this
this
in your
doesn't work
view,
very
well, actually, let's see if it works, and
So
then
this
we'll
will
get to
be-
some of the questions are piling in, Andy. So
Are they?
so let's see that. I want to see this work, and then we'll ask a few things.
Did I make it capitals?
But we've got
Someone tell me if I made it capitals. I did. All right. I don't see any of the questions because I don't have my.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. I think they're jumping a little ahead. So I
love
want to.
questions.
I want to let.
Let's
I
see
want
if this
to. I
works.
want to see this work. Where what you've done now is using a tag helper that came with the feature management
Yeah.
NuGet
yeah,
package.
that's
Okay,
right.
so this tag helper enables you to go check the feature flag in a view, which we previously checked it in the controller
Okay.
using C# code, but now the view was able to say this markup, use this markup if the flag's on, and there it
Yeah.
is.
And Rich, if you turn that toggle off real quick, just so we prove that it's really working,
Yeah.
you mind? He's going to go in and turn it off. I'm not touching my
That's off.
computer. It's off, right? Simple as that. And you saw the text. It said, check out the shiny new thing. But in addition to the text changing, it's going to change to like an H4 or something I had it. So the text will
Right.
be smaller. Oh, let's get
Right,
this
the view
quick one.
itself was modified, a little bit of difference in the markup.
Yeah. I don't know
So-
why this keeps getting small. It's annoying. There it is.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that didn't look.
Yeah, I don't know that
Like
the
an
H4
H4.
kicked in.
So maybe something else is wrong in my tag helper. Let's see. Put the H4 there. Negate.
But you gave it a class of display for.
Oh, hey, what's that? I don't know.
I'm wondering if that class makes it look that way
Who
instead of
knows?
it just being whatever the base H4 was. And so here we are with a CSS. We're jumping right
I
into
did-
CSS,
yeah, I tried
right? Here
this
we go.
I tried something like this earlier.
So-
H1, H4. Let's try it again. So what kind of question?
One question was is like is like so I can't have a code where I say dev asset 1, QA asset 1.
I think you were right, by the way.
Yeah.
See that text there? So that whatever that
That
class
CSS
was
just
stepping on it.
stepped
Yeah,
on top of
yeah.
the H4, right?
Thanks for thinking of that. I appreciate it.
So
cool. We can do it in code.
right.
We could do it in
You
UI.
could do it in the UI because there's a tag helper that helps you.
Yeah.
And in this case, you checked for the tag helper and also checked its state. So
Yeah.
I believe, I think I might be answering Arun's question here, where he says I can't have code with dev asset 1, QA asset 1. Well, you could, right? You could just, instead of checking whether something's true or false, although I feel like you got to be a little bit more careful here. Is
'Cause he's
instead
talking about his enum being that, right?
I think it's that he wants. I think that this is right. Is that he wants
Asset one's the key.
asset 1's the key, but it says dev dash asset 1, QA dash asset 1. So
So that's a different key.
right, you could theoretically use labels for that
we think.
and
Yeah.
filter. We think.
And that
Dustin points out that labels can be a pain because if you apply one, you have to make sure you add it to the filter.
yeah.
So
Oh, that's where the filter.
Right.
There's a label filter.
right.
I was talking earlier about like a percentage filter. We haven't looked at filters.
Right, and like
Mhm.
Arun points out, like, well, today we can just do this with the app setting table, and I think we've conceded that you can write code that checks a value somewhere.
Yep.
And you can own that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's-
Well, sure, we could do that. Yep.
Th-
And
that
you
could
just
work well.
If you just have an app service and that's all you have,
Right.
why
That
not?
could work
Why-
really well.
Why have the extra ceremony around
Yeah.
that?
So we're not telling you like run to app config, but what we talked about earlier is what app config buys you is now by centralizing this, it could then apply to front end, back end, services, the entire platform that you're. And unfortunately, sometimes the value maybe doesn't show itself in a simple
demo.
example.
Yeah.
But look what you did get from the Microsoft Dot feature management package is you got that tooltip feature, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
We showed that. Can we go back and take a look at the controller real
I'm
quick?
sorry. You're looking at
Me? No, you're looking at me.
No, we were looking at code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
let's
wanna
go.
go back to my
Let's go
controller.
look back at the controller to see. So, in the controller,
Yep.
iFeature Manager was injected,
That's what I did.
right?
Yep.
And then, but it still has to be set up. So back in startup, or was it program?
Well, both places.
Okay.
In startup, you have to wire. Sorry, in program,
Right.
you wire up that connection to Azure.
Right.
You're configuring the add Azure. You're configuring the app config.
You're adding app config, and if you
Yeah.
didn't do that, which we tried first at the very beginning of this, we didn't even have that in there, so it just read it out of app settings.
Just runs locally. Yeah.
But over in your startup.cs,
That's where you need 2 lines of code. You need add feature management.
okay, right, to just add the service, just like you're adding MVC controllers and views.
Yeah. And then
Now,
down the bottom.
Down here, this is when you want to use Azure.
That
You add this in
activated
again.
Azure app
I guess it-
configuration. Yeah.
Going back to where we were 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
If you put that setting back in your app settings now,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
and
Let's
make
do
it
that.
false, let's make sure that's what we
Yeah,
have.
sure. So if I go to feature management, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manage.
So I think to your point, Dustin, it might have been. Dustin says, you can import Microsoft.Feature Management ASP.NET package as well, and use a FeatureGate attribute on your actions. Now I think, did you just bring in feature management, or did you also bring in the ASP.NET?
I brought in 2 packages.
Okay,
2 new.
so
Get
we may
packages.
have that package. And a little bit earlier tonight, you were saying that there were FeatureGate attributes. We just didn't.
These are the two-
get there.
These are the 2 packages I'm bringing in.
Okay.
App configuration.asp.NET Core.
Right.
I said ASP.NET. ASP.NET Core.
Yeah.
And feature management ASP.
Right.
ASP.NET Core.
The second one got you the feature management feature that lets you through configuration turn feature flags on and off, but the top package there lets you tie it up to app configuration.
Which seems so.
So
with
they
the
work
name
together.
Azure. Yeah,
They work together.
Right. So I'm going to run
we didn't do the feature gate with attribute, but you did mention it. You
I can,
said something
I can
about
show it.
coming.
I have a.
Yeah.
If you want.
So wait, did you want me to run this? Because you said you wanted me to put in.
So we are true in app config.
Right. So I'm false here.
Yes.
So let's-
Yeah.
let's
So
run
this
that.
this experiment was who wins. I think it's going to be local, but
and
what do
I
I
think
know?
it read when I read is that it would go to Azure if it
It
finds
should be
it
app
there.
config.
But let's find out. It went to Azure.
Which is
Okay.
what.
Now, if I disconnect from Azure, let's say I'm offline.
Right.
Well, the problem with the way this is, it's not a big problem, but if it can't connect to Azure, I think it fails.
Right.
And so what I would need to do, there's a couple things you can do. Let me talk about this because I read something. One is I could go into program and I could disable this wiring. Okay. But I saw a blog post earlier. I saw something in the docs earlier that talks about another library that you can, another project. You make another .NET project and you deploy it with your solution. And what it does is if it can't find Azure, it goes and looks in this other place. And that way, if there's what they were saying is what you don't want to have happen is you deploy your app to production, but for some reason it can't contact Azure.
Okay, yeah. So it's to help with single point of failure
It's
issues,
to help
right?
with a single point of failure.
And I
don't
think
have
that was in the FAQ, if I remember correctly. So
I wonder if that was in this last article I had. I don't know. I was looking at a bunch of articles. So anyway, what was the thing that Rich was talking about?
So
and-
I have a. Let me see if I can bring this up real quick. That other feature flag that we had inside of there. We looking at mine? We are looking at mine.
We
Look at
are.
yours,
We are
yeah.
looking at your Azure console right now. Your
Have you
Azure
always
portal.
been looking at my Azure?
No,
console?
we were not for the last few. You just switched to it. Now you're looking at my machine.
I'm looking at your machine. That's what.
Oh, that's my machine, and I'm
That's
looking at his
messing
machine.
me up.
Oh,
There we
because I
go.
switched to your machine,
Yeah.
and now I switched to his machine. I was trying to look at.
I'm
his
looking at
machine 'cause-
secrets. I'm looking at all these things, and I realize and I'm starting to panic. Okay, so this is the app configuration that we
trying to
did.
get-
Right. This is Andy's setting. This is a setting that I did for a demo app that we were putting together. Right. So
Okay.
it's just a beta key. Right now it's turned off. If we go into this actual application here, this URL is not valid for beta.
Ooh.
If I go to the web page, I don't have any information up here about how to access beta features. What I'm going to do is go back to, now I wrote all this using our in code, so using Visual Studio Code. I shut the application down. I'm going to go back for timing purposes and set this to on. So the beta flag is now enabled.
Okay.
And then we'll go ahead and we'll do a .NET run. Brings up our application.
So
And you
by the
see
way,
here,
this is VS Code.
this
I
is
was
the-
using Visual Studio. You're using VS Code.
Yep.
Stuff just
Yeah.
works.
Just works. Yeah.
But you can see this feature gate here.
That's what I was talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Remember I said you could put it on a controller or on
And
an
this is on the
action.
beta controller, and it was
Yeah.
specifically on the index view,
Wow.
right? So when I went /beta,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
So what should happen now is I should see two things when I run the application. If I go back here, test flag, and we relaunch this,
Yep.
I now have
Look at that.
this beta option in the menu,
Yeah.
and I'll show you where that
I'm
comes
not
from.
seeing your mouse, but I see the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See we're here
Um,
beta. But now if I go to here, I see that beta page that was in place.
That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. And that's all. We created a separate view for this. Sorry, that's the layout. Yeah, so that's the original layout where we've got, much like you had in there, we added the tag helpers
Mhm.
and then added a feature in here for this additional menu option when that feature is enabled.
That's nice.
And then the index HTML just to show, hey, we've gotten to the page.
That's
So,
nice.
Pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and this is a key part of. I think a lot of Microsoft products are using this. The Azure DevOps portal is one place where we see it because you as a user can turn on and off experimental features, but they have a whole article where they talk about their use of feature flags. It comes with a video, and they have some things to consider in there, such as making sure that when you do this, you now have to test both sides of the flag. That's a little bit of a burden that you've taken on.
Sure.
And make sure that the features that you are I'm summarizing. We should definitely read it and make sure that we try to get this link. It seems like there'd be a place for a lot of good show notes in the comments for the YouTube archive, right?
Yeah.
But one thing they pointed out is make sure that you don't ship a security hole by saying like, hey, I'll go ahead and ship this API under feature flag, but make sure that thing sitting out there can't be exploited, right? So that's a conversation that certainly would be more analysis than just a paragraph, but it was interesting to read. It's an article by Buck Hodges sitting on the Azure DevOps docs. So there's a lot of places to find this stuff. The feature management documentation is in the Azure docs, but the Azure DevOps team talks about their experiences.
Yep.
They document their experiences. So even though they don't specifically use the feature in this article, I don't know what they're using. They do talk about what they are doing. They could be using it.
Could be using
Yeah.
any. I mean, there are all kinds of, like we said at the beginning, there
Right.
are many different ways to do this.
Right.
Right. And interesting to me to see that it's a different way of thinking, but it provides some. So I'm trying to figure out is this to help us avoid the kind of the big bang approach of like, okay, the service has got to go, the front end's got to go,
Yeah.
everything's got to
That's
ship
right.
today.
That's exactly. I
Yeah.
think it really helps with that. This is stuff we do, in my organization, and maybe you guys do. We have different teams that are ready at different phases, and when a team's done with a feature, I want it out the door. I don't want them like holding it back.
Yeah.
In a branch or something like that. That just leads to more problems. So get it into the master or trunk or whatever whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Get it in there. Get it into the build. Get it out there, and move on to the next thing you're working on. Right.
Absolutely.
Because if you hold off on that feature and for some reason master needs to move, you could be setting yourself up for a nightmare.
There's
Okay.
all kinds of problems.
Well, and that's just one problem.
Yeah.
That's the source control related problem, and that because I just wanted to bring up Gomez's law. I've always wanted. I think
Gomez's
I've
law?
always wanted to have something like
You're
named
getting
after
really
me.
close. Notice when he does this. Look how he's
It's
leaning
right
into the
to the
microphone.
So
You
I
see what he's
named it.
doing?
And then I got to come back over here and adjust, right?
I
He's
named
like-
it after myself because I thought how there's like Conway's law
Yeah, sure.
and like
What is Gomez's law?
Pascal's.
Yeah,
I'm sure Pascal's got something.
So what's
And-
Gomez's
Pascal's
and-
constant, right?
How do you,
Yeah, Pascal's constancy.
How do you state Gomez's
Gomez's
law?
law is that the longer a branch stays in
I like
existence,
Yeah.
the less you will be willing to delete it later. If the branch lives for a day, and then you go and merge, you'll be willing to throw it away because you're like, oh yeah, I just did that. It's fresh in my mind. You wait a week, you wait 2 weeks, you wait a month, you wait 3 months. Your whole team will be scared to death. I don't know. I'm not sure what's on that branch. Maybe we should hang on to
Well,
it.
you're talking about deleting branch, right? I think that the
That's
story
Gomez's
here,
law.
Well, that is good.
I'm just stating the law. I can't. So the point is feature flags help us because that way you can get the code back in the master.
It's just Gomez's law.
Feel free to
It's
add,
with me. It's
feel free to
Gomez's
add it
law.
to Wikipedia because I can't.
Right.
Yeah, and you can cite the show.
Back off the
Right.
mic here.
You can cite
he
the
got
show.
so close to it, he's like, let's talk
You
about
can,
Gomez.
you can cite the
I didn't
show,
go loud. I
right?
tried to go
No, you
softly.
didn't. It was good.
Gets in there, man. He was all serious about Gomez.
Yeah. Well, I felt. Look, what other?
I think the best
What
moment of
chance
the
do
show.
I have of having one of these computer science laws naming after me? And so I'll just do it.
Done.
Yeah, it's done. So
Achievement unlocked.
I've
Do
actually-
we have a sound effect for
I-
achievement unlocked.
I said it at Tech Bash. I've said it here at Code Camp.
What'd you say?
Gomez's law.
And you've called it that?
Yeah.
It didn't catch on.
No, it hasn't. I checked Wikipedia and it's still not.
Back off
It's
this
still not there. And I found, what's funny is I went to Gomez.com and those folks.
It doesn't mention it there?
no, it doesn't mention it. And I said, you need to sell it. You need to give me the domain now because I need to post. And they were like, yeah, whatever. So-
What is there-
Gomez's law.
Yes, there is.
Look, there's a thing called Gomez's hamburger.
We-
I don't know what that is. Gomez's law.
All right, so feature
Gomez-
flags.
It's not in. I googled it. There is no such thing as Gomez's law.
Well,
it can't be real.
All right,
If it can't Google it.
but I got a
explained legal
it.
site that came up
Yeah,
when I
that's what
put
I'm
Go.
getting.
I just explained it to you.
Gomez's law. Yeah, but the problem is if I forget it.
Well, you're here. You'll be here every Wednesday.
So who's
at
out on the
8:30.
stream? Let's ask these guys. So,
Yeah.
like Dustin is, if Dustin's and Aaron Boxer, statue, hey,
Yeah. Stasha Korik's here.
statue's there, statue.
And
So if you guys can spread the word about Gomez's law,
yeah, I'm
then
sure.
maybe it's like someone should start tweeting it.
I'm sure
Like,
you-
did you hear about Gomez's law? Like as if you make it a thing, it just becomes a
It
thing,
becomes a
right?
thing,
So
right,
we just
yeah.
gotta let's
Just gotta
use
keep
it.
saying it.
Just
Yeah.
gotta keep saying it. Gomez's law.
It's
Yeah.
the law. I don't
You
know
know
that
what
I
you
stated
know what we're
it
gonna
very
do?
well.
We're gonna clip.
I think you need to come
but
up with a
part of it was because I had colleagues who I'm telling you we would get together as a team, and they would just be, oh my god, we can't do. I don't know what's in that branch, and we're in a meeting, and that's when That's when the idea came to me.
wow.
I said that's because it's been 6 months. We're
Rich.
afraid to delete this branch.
Rich, it's what strikes me about this whole thing is as
Yeah.
I'm listening to this story, how interesting and exciting this is, and I think to myself, don't you wish, Rich? How many times have you wished that you were in the room when Chris said that the first time? Like you could say, I was there when Chris came up with Gomez's law.
I'm sure-
Gomez's law was born.
Like who was in the room?
Well, people were in the room, but I didn't. So I wasn't ready to tell them.
Oh,
But
That's how those things kind of
So
come
it
up,
wasn't
right?
Gomez.
But I'm sure that
Yeah,
someone
okay.
like a longtime Code Camp participant like Tim Huber, who has been to many Git talks, and I've learned a lot about using Git well in Teams from him. That's a whole other show.
all right.
Yeah.
I think
So
we totally
tonight we
lost
talked.
track of this
Tonight
whole
we talked
thing.
about
So
feature
Wait,
management.
what do you got?
we're gonna go to the video. We're gonna clip out this little section, and we're gonna make it its own video and call it Gomez's Law
Gomez's
and
Law.
put it up on the site.
That's what we
There
should
go.
do.
Yes.
We clip this thing, right?
Yes.
That's a great idea. We need some highlights.
That is definitely a highlight.
It's definitely
It's real. It's
I
the longer
agree.
you wait
Truth
to delete
comes
a
out.
branch, the more you're going to be worried about deleting it.
Yeah.
Although, if you have a tool, like, see, this is a whole other show. If you have, this is where I say, look, Git Kraken helps you overcome Gomez's law because you just hit the little eyeball, and if you don't feel that what it did is destructive, then delete it. Get it out of here.
So we want to avoid. So Gomez's law is a bad thing. It's an anti-pattern. No, it's it's like describes an anti-pattern or something like that.
I don't know. We'll work on that.
Let's reel this in.
Yeah, let's roll it back to the.
something here. What I think that I was really psyched. We talked about this a little bit, and I put again like 15 minutes into looking into this today.
Yeah.
And I think it went completely smoothly, except for the fact that we came up with this idea to try the label.
The label, right?
Which
You threw in the monkey wrench, which
We threw the monkey in there.
you know how the demos
but this
are, right?
Is a
You
pretty
don't.
easy, yeah. But
Don't
this
mess
is
with the
pretty
demo.
easy to get started with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it ticks a lot of the boxes. What you were saying earlier, and what we talk about a lot on this show, which is, by the way, Wednesday nights at 8:30.
Yep. Right here.
Be here with us for the Dev Talk Show.
Archives on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to do stuff, and if you have another way that you're doing it that already works for you,
Right.
keep
I'm
doing
not
it.
saying to stop.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a way, try this one because we think this is pretty easy. It's a good way to get started.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Arun has made some comments on some of the things that they are doing with app settings in the database. So
Yeah.
that works, and you don't need it to scale past that.
And you know what? I've done that before too, right?
Yeah.
The database is a.
Your config setting.
I mean,
config table.
essentially, that's what this. There's a database somewhere that what is a database? It's a place to store data, right?
Mhm.
You know what this probably is that
That's Schwamm's law.
That's
Schwamm
What is
says
a
the
database?
is
It's a
store
place
data.
to store data.
That's pretty
Schwamm's
good.
theory. No, that's Schwamm's theory.
Schwamm's theorem.
I think it's just Schwamm's observation. Like, I'm not sure that it's reached the level of theorem or law. It's just an observation because it doesn't.
Well, why
Isn't that how they start?
Why
Yours
is
law
yours not
started
an
that way.
observation?
Because the law is telling you that if you wait too long, then you're going to be afraid. But what this is just saying, don't worry, we'll move it to a law. But in any case, the
Somebody
key point
back
is,
me up here. I
look,
think
we
mine should be a law.
probably all started
Statute?
by putting something like a feature flag, even if we didn't call it a feature flag,
Right.
just a way to control code. How many times we have put it in a web config in an app setting? Probably did it in .NET Framework 1.0. Right? That shows my age. But in any case,
1.1.
you can see this. Yeah, this is the natural evolution of it. First, you put it in app settings, and then finally, somebody smart, like with Schwamm's observation, says, "Wait a second, this shouldn't be in app settings. This should be in the database. Let's get it. Let's separate it from the code." And then someone
That
like
is not
Rich,
Schwamm's theorem, but it's
someone
okay.
the database is the place to store data, right? But then someone like Rich comes along, who works in the cloud, right? And he says, "Wait a second, you don't want it in your database."
Rich actually works in the cloud.
Like,
I thought you work. You
well,
don't work at this
works-
office.
I don't work
like
at the
you
cloud.
actually work in the cloud.
And then
We
Rich
roll the clouds
says,
in.
"Hold on, you don't want this in the database because now you're tying it to the database. You want to break that apart so it's your whole platform." And of course, you see now we have Azure App Configuration. So each one builds a little bit more flexibility the higher you go.
Right.
But if you put it in a web config setting and it works for you, then at least we had a good conversation about feature flags. That's the important thing.
So one of the questions I have, like what's next
Yeah,
with
right.
this? Like
Yeah.
where do we take this? So I'd like to look at more, personally at least, on these environments. Like how do we do that a little bit, right?
Yep.
The next thing is in the articles I was reading today. Statue says it must be wet up there in the cloud. Yeah. So I saw some stuff that you can build these toggles into your pipeline somehow, and so when you're deploying, it can say if maybe if you have this, maybe if you're in beta, it deploys extra beta stuff, or maybe it doesn't, right? But then I was thinking about the pipelines and DevOps from a different perspective, and I was thinking, what are you reading, man? You're all laughing.
I thank you to Bruno for our rolling on the floor laughing gif. That was awesome.
Oh, why am I not seeing that?
Because I'm in Mixer. That's
That
where
was
the
on
people
Mixer,
are.
right?
Yeah.
But I thought
'Cause-
it comes through.
But on Mixer, you can send gifts to the chat.
Oh, and they don't come through all the way.
Well, Restream
See,
just
we
doesn't.
gotta figure out a better way to.
Restream just
I don't know what else
doesn't
I'm
bring it
missing,
together.
But hey,
So.
man, thanks, Bruno. So what I'm wondering is, how do we what I'd like to do is deploy the toggles to Azure App Feature Management, like where you configured it. You
Right.
put shiny new thing.
Yeah,
I would like to get. I like everything DevOps, right?
I agree. I'm
so
with
I
you.
add a new feature toggle into my code. I want it to then appear in that UI somehow, so that it is ready to be toggled. And there's probably a way to do that with like a PowerShell script in my pipeline. Like, I'm sure there's ways to do it.
So how do you? So let me roll back a little bit. So if I put a new app setting in my web app, how do you get that into your pipeline?
If I put a new app setting in my
So I've got a web app, just a straight web app, just like we did today. That web app that's got the connection string or the feature flag, whatever it is, it was in your app settings.
yeah.
Check that code into repos, and how do you get that then into the pipeline?
I don't know if I need to get that into the pipeline. Well, if I want it to be I make a variable. It's like if I want it to change per environment.
Yeah.
So I would have a variable in my pipeline.
And you would manually go in and do that.
In my pipeline.
Yeah.
But that puts it into like the environment where I want it to be.
Right.
I would like to get this value into, so I would need to have some sort of pipeline step where I configure these toggles.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to do is make the jump between right now we're doing it manually into app settings, and we're saying, well, we should be able to automate this into app config. Right.
Not sure I'm following you.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's right. It's okay.
So
Go ahead.
why do you need the flag in the portal? It's off by default. And remember, friends don't let friends use the portal. So you have a nice administration console that your team uses.
Well,
And
so you're saying we shouldn't use the Azure portal, like the on-off switches that we saw?
look, the Azure portal is great. I'm really not dissing it, but I'm not the first person to say that.
I gotta move over because when lightning strikes,
Yeah,
in this
really.
building over
I'm not
here,
the first
I
person
wanna
to
be on
say
the edge.
To
that.
say
And
what?
the reason why that phrase is the joke, friends don't let friends use the Azure
Yeah.
portal, is that
Oh.
you should probably automate beyond the portal.
I just listened.
Right.
Earlier today, I was tweeting back and forth
In
with-
production.
with Scott Goo.
Right.
And he
well,
said he was going to watch the show tonight.
Yeah.
So Scott,
Okay.
none
of this.
I wish you
none
would have
of this
told me
is-
that before.
Yeah, none of this is actually true, by the
well,
way.
obviously,
So,
right, yeah. Like Scott Goo's
just
going
want
to
to make that. I want to make that very clear.
But you know, wouldn't that be something if he was like lurking in the background
that would be
and
great.
you made your statement that friends don't let friends use the Azure portal?
I'm not. I actually won't try to guess other folks who might have said it because I probably misattribute it, but I'm sure I've heard it before. The idea is that that in production you probably want to automate past it. You might have a nice admin console that
you're
then
right.
goes and makes the REST calls and says, "Oh yeah, go turn that thing on." And so,
You're right.
but you know what? Your point is still valid. Automate everything, and that is from
Totally.
Scott Guthrie. Best practices in the cloud. Number 1 was automate everything. We
Automate
should
all
go
the
find
things.
that. It was pretty. What doesn't he say that is
He probably
not
said
just
it, yeah.
law, right? He is the law firm. It's not just the law. There's the whole
Yeah.
firm, the whole. No, he's great.
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've done enough damage
what
today.
can we plug? What do we got coming up? We
Code
said
King.
we
We got a lot
weren't going to
coming up.
have a show in a few weeks, but maybe we'll have a show the Wednesday.
Well, everybody's around.
For
yeah.
Summit, yeah.
Yeah, the week that's.
Well, we got
there's
next
gonna
week
be other
still.
content. What's that?
We still have next week.
Yeah, we have next week's show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Topic?
We didn't intend to be here the Wednesday night of Summit. I actually will be busy that night.
No matter what.
Yeah,
Oh,
because I'm home, I get to attend my daughter's
Yes,
hockey
hockey?
tryouts.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Good luck
That's
I was
awesome.
gonna I was gonna miss those. Yeah.
Good luck to Sam. I'm
Good
sure
luck
you're
to
happy
Sam.
to be there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
what
first
else?
I asked her. I said, "Do you want me?" Because I thought she might be. Maybe she doesn't want her parents watching her try out. But she said,
Ah.
"Oh no, that's cool." Actually, she did this. She was busy doing something else.
Yeah. She just like kind of like Dad. Yeah.
Look, when she's, you know, what can Dad tell a Mawa 10U champion about hockey anymore, right? There's nothing left. There is no more Dad can teach her. She has the medal around her neck.
like, you know,
It's all
yeah,
over.
Dad,
So the junior flyer, if you're watching in the future, we will always have it recorded here that the 10U junior flyers won the Mawa district championship.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah.
So, what else do we got coming up? So we have a show next week.
Yep.
So Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m.
Yep.
Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
We are here.
Yep.
On Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube.
But you can watch anytime.
And you can always watch the archives on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can, and follow us on Mixer or Twitch if you're there.
Yeah.
Or Twitter.
Twitter.
There's a Twitter account. There's
Yeah,
an
there
Instagram
is a
account
Twitter
too.
account.
But,
You
yeah.
can always check us out at thedevtalkshow.com.
Can I plug? Wednesdays at night. I asked, can I plug?
Yep.
But I'm going to roll right into
I was
it.
gonna
Do it anyway.
Wednesdays
Why
at
wait?
noon, I'm live streaming, noon Eastern time. I'm live streaming Schwami streams on Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube.
Yep. And Chris, you bringing that up?
And that's been going pretty well.
How many shows you got? Have you?
I
Or how
think
long
I'm
you
at
been doing
like 10 shows probably.
that? Okay.
And, I'm getting like 15 people in there. Love to see anybody that's online now. Love to see you come by Schwami streams.
Yep.
Wednesdays at noon.
And is that the YouTube channel as well?
It is Schwami streams, yeah, and looks like Chris is typing some of that stuff in there. What's Code Camp?
Code Camp
16th
is
and
April
17th.
17th and 18th.
Yeah.
So
something
put
like
that on your calendars, right? What else?
Definitely.
What else do we plug?
What
Well,
else?
we
can
know in a
plug?
couple weeks from tonight, Philly.net will have Mike Maluski back talking about. He's talking about like containerization practices.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be good.
But that'll be on the Philly.net channel on the 25th. They start at 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern. But we're here 8:30 U.S. Eastern. And for those of you folks that aren't in the U.S., that time will be changing by an hour after this next weekend. We go from UTC 4 to 5?
Oh no! You know, 'cause
Minus
all the
4 to
stuff I
minus
have for
5?
my stream, I work so hard to say like I have all these like I have even images now that say noon. So if I say Eastern Standard Time and we change to Eastern Daylight Time or something like that,
Most
everyone
people
knows what
most
that
people
means,
know.
right?
But I
Like,
usually just say Eastern Time or put the UTC
but the
number in there.
abbreviation is Eastern Standard Time. You know, so I say UTC minus 5.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's going to change.
It goes from, and I know it goes from 5 to 4. So
See,
I
that's
think
a
we're
real
going
pain in
from
the
5
neck.
to 4. Yeah.
Because like if you're trying to build some branding, like like I have graphics.
Yeah.
I mean they're like I made them, but they're not like fancy graphics. But
Just say U.S. Eastern. Then you don't even need the standard. Then it can never be wrong.
Except it's out of sync with UTC.
It is out of sync with UTC.
people asked me, they said, when you promote your live streams, you should always put like a UTC.
Yeah,
on
a lot
Yeah,
of
I
people
agree.
said that. Right, and it
it,
does.
right? But now it's
And we
kinda
do
gets
shift
screwed
it
up.
twice a year.
Right. I hate that thing.
All
I'm
right.
putting my channels in there.
You're full on plugging.
I am just plugging away.
All right. I think that's a show that
Wait, I got to get my last.
if you stuck with us the last 25 minutes.
Oh gosh, I didn't even stick with it. I've
Then,
been gone for
right, Andy's already stopped watching. Then thank you for doing so. And if you follow us on Twitter on the Dev Talk Show, then what we really should do is have next week's topic ready for you so you'll know what we're going to talk about next week at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. It will be daylight time, so enjoy that time change. Other than that, we'll turn our feature flag off. So thanks for joining us.
Great ending.
We've got so for Andy Schwam, and thank you to Rich Ross for controlling the levels in and out no matter what, just surprising him like, oh, I gotta change the levels. Appreciate all the production work he does. You should see this place, and he makes it all happen. So
And if you come to Code Camp, you'll be able to. 'cause
if you
we're
come to
gonna do
Code
a
Camp,
live streaming
here at
session.
Philly.net, you can see it. I'm Chris Gomez, and thank you very much for joining us on the Dev Talk Show.